Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for our next part of the symposium, which is titled On Origins, which is part one of two parts. Um, this particular program is exploring diaspora artists whose work focuses on themes and narratives that are rooted in or responding to West African cultural values and ideas. Our presentations for the part one of On Origins is going to be by three different artists. The first artist is Ndidi Ekubia. Ndidi is a contemporary silversmith who has been creating stunning silverware from London since 1998. Through her use of traditional hand raising techniques and inspirations from her African heritage, Ndidi's statement pieces take on fluid and sensual forms with both a sculptural and functional identity. Her work swirls with vitality and ranges in scale from domestic bowls, drinking vessels, and vases to spectacular wine coolers, salvers, and centerpieces. Ndidi's pieces are made using traditional silversmithing techniques that require the beating of sheet metal over steel and wooden forms. This process allows her to explore the resistance and strength of silver sheet with specialist hammers. The process of creating these rich sensual forms is rhythmical, mesmerizing, and this scene of tools pushing the metal to its limits, emphasizing the fluid vitality of each form, is powerful and evoking. Each piece exposes an emotional response to the material, each one a unique blend of order and chaos. Ndidi is currently based in Manchester, United Kingdom. Thank y'all.
Hi, my name is Ndidi Ekubia. I'm based in the UK and I've been silversmithing since 1998. I got interested in metals when I was studying at the University of Wolverhampton, and I was doing a course called three-dimensional design. So we were able to work in wood, metal, and plastics. The workshops were well equipped. So when we got there, a lot of the students there were like making huge bits of furniture, jewelry, experimenting with plastics and things like that. Um, I was shown a technique called repousse, and this is using hammers and punches to pattern metal. At the time, it was copper, and I got totally fascinated with it. Um, I also, in at my university, there was a soundproof room which had lots of tools, wooden logs, and I was fascinated by the tools. I can show you the sort of tools that was in the room. We had things like bossing hammers, so they were quite large. We also had they also had different types of hammers like these, which were like raising hammers, blocking hammers, and planishing hammers, different sizes and things like that. So I was really fascinated and wanted to know how these tools were used, and why they were in a soundproof room. So anyway, my a jewelry teacher taught us repousse. So with repousse, you use a chasing hammer, and you use this to hammer punches into the material, which is laid down in a pitch bowl with pitch. It's quite a involved and messy process, and so I thought, what if I replace the pitch bowl with sandbags? So I got an old leather jacket, and I made a massive sandbag and got sheets of metal and started to use the wooden hammers, the blocking hammers, to hammer into the metal and stretch the metal. So the sort, I mean, I'd played around with different sizes of material, and we were using copper and gilded metal. I'm going to show you one of the pieces that I came out with at the end. So this piece here, the top bit is copper, and the bottom bit is gilded metal, which is a mixture of copper and brass. So to start off with, I would block out this form. So hitting the central bit, say like it's a flat piece of sheet, you hit the center and it causes the metal to curve round. And then the lines that you can see and the patterns that you can see on the actual material, I laid it down onto a sandbag and would chase from the inside the lines and patterns. Here's another piece that I made. I mean, these pieces were quite big. They were like this one was about say 90 centimeters, almost a meter long. And I used to draw, well, I still draw quite a lot. So I'd put all the patterns that I was drawing into the metal. So after a while, I left university and went to a residency called Bishop's Land, and I spent a year there, and I was introduced to silver. So I started making objects in silver. I was lucky to get a commission for a small bowl, and I would use different hammers and things to manipulate the metal to get patterns and things like that. The older pieces that I used to make, you can see a connection more clearly into sort of like my background. I mean, these two pieces, I was looking at, I don't know, wooden carvings, and I was fascinated with patterns on certain materials. So like batik materials, like my mum used to wear like batik African material. So the material was quite bold and colourful. And I've got a dress that it's quite a new pattern, this is, but it just shows you the sort of like bold patterns that that you'd see in African wear and stuff. This one is like a new version of it. Back then, they were really quite big and bold and colourful, and the clothes would sort of like, take over your whole sort of being and stuff. So I loved all of that, and it was, my mum used to wear African wear all the time. She still does, and even her jewelry was quite bold and big and stuff. So I wasn't shy about showing the different patterns that I enjoyed looking at and things in various things. Over time, when I started working in the silver, I got into the function of the material. So I started to make up my own function. So like this dish is a walnut dish. So I used wood as a former to push the material and get various shapes in it. So the idea was that you'd have your whole nuts on one side, and then you would crack your walnuts, and then you would leave the shell on the other side and stuff like that. This piece is probably about a foot and a bit long. Also, using different techniques, I would say I can make a banana holder out of the silver and stuff. This silver here was folded in half and forged along the edge, along this edge, which would cause it to sort of like warp and move and give you a beautiful pattern. Then I would open the material up and then tried to make it into sort of like a banana leaf look. And then obviously I started to see if I could marry the silver with glass and things like that. So I would look at paintings as well as an influence. I love the way brush marks in paintings would sort of like swirl round the canvas. And so as over time, my work started to show the movement within the material. And I'd use my hammer marks to show this movement along on the surface of the forms. And I still do that now. I use different types of hammers. And my sort of thing is to try and find function and marry it with the material. And I think that probably came from originally was when I was at home with my mom, and she had a lot of African objects like wooden. She had a wooden stool which was made out of different types of wood, and it had been layered so it was different colours, and then it had pillars underneath it. And I used to remember. I remember, being totally fascinated by the curve in the material, and then also the fact that these pillars were like diamond shaped, and it was, beautifully crafted. Also, she used to use wooden spoons to make the food that we would eat and things like that. So the spoons weren't just like a wooden spoon, they would be carved wooden spoons, quite big and chunky. And also, so I was fascinated with the fact that these carvings were quite, they were functional, yet quite unusual looking. And so, and I remember thinking to myself, what, somebody's actually, you can actually see the marks of the tool that somebody's carved into the wood. You could see the marks of these tools. And you could also, and it wasn't like they made them so smooth or anything like that. It was just literally quite sort of like a bold sort of look to it. So very sort of like not harsh, but just sort of like a bold look to it, like as if, they're making a lot of these objects and, it doesn't really matter whether they're totally finished, they're just, useful. So for me, I just would fight with the materials that I'm using, like the silk, the metal, and try and push and pull the material all the time. I enjoy working in large pieces of material and the sort of surfaces that you can get out of them and stuff. This is quite an old picture. So some of the pieces I would use a big steel ball to form the actual shape to start off with. Let's have a look here. So you can see here in this vase that starting from the base, the pattern would swirl round and curve round up into the top. And for me, it was always about the pattern would continuously move across the surface and then back down into the base. So literally, if you look at any of the objects that I make and you handle them, there's a constant movement. The pattern will follow right round into the form. Okay, so the sketches that I do are quite two-dimensional. And so here it's showing here a piece where that's the starting point. So like I would have raised that from a flat piece of sheet and then draw the pattern onto that, and then I would start to work the pattern into there. and this shows you the same piece, but the same piece looks different from different angles and stuff. So it's not necessarily about symmetry, it's more about yeah, you look at it from each angle and it's different. Also here, sometimes I would make out of paper or card templates so that I can work out how the actual, this is be the base, and how the material is going to be moved and pushed and pulled round to create the form. So here you can see the different stages. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sort of like thing to show you the different stages. Obviously, it would take quite a long time to get to that stage and stuff. Yeah, so selling the work. The work is, most of it is quite high end, so I would try to, I mean, at the beginning I used to do quite a lot of exhibitions, and I still do, and so people are actually into metal, say, and they would collect silverware. Sometimes people would approach me at my studio and I would do commission work. So they would have an idea of something that they want, maybe by looking at what I have, or to commemorate a special occasion and things like that. At the lower end of the objects that I make, I have like silver spoons, and I used to make key rings and things when I had open studios, and the drinking cups and the christening cups are quite popular because they're quite accessible. Let's just show you some here. These have changed over the years. So these ones are quite older ones. These ones are more new. So I've started to use like a more finer hammer to put the patterns in. No two bowls, no two cups, no two pieces are exactly the same. It's impossible. I'm not a machine, so every piece is individual. And I quite enjoy the fact that they are individual pieces. I've attempted to make teapots as well. Some successful, some not so successful. And also, so yeah, this gives you an idea of sort of like, I wouldn't do the engraving myself, I would get somebody to do that for me, to engrave on the actual surface. This is just showing the pattern against a piece of material. So the exhibitions that I used to do were things like Goldsmiths Fair, which is in London, and then I'd be invited to do various exhibitions. And then also I have certain outlets, like say Adrian Sassoon or Style Silver, or Leo de Vrooman, who used to have a jewelry shop in London. So these places would show my work, and yeah, no, allow people to handle them so that they could see if they wanted to purchase something. So yeah, here again, I'm showing you some of the larger pieces that I've made. Some pieces, a lot of pieces I've made are in collections as well. This is at the Grocers Company, a livery company in London. And I'm lucky to have a lot of pieces in museums as well, so that people can see them. This one is one that is among one of my favourites, and this one's at the V&A, Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and I love this piece. It really does show sort of like my style in a way of like the piece starts from the bottom and works its way through, and I've spent a lot of time pushing and pulling the material to give it sort of like this bulbous, fruitful sort of like as if it's bursting out from the form. Yeah, so I'm now based in Manchester. So I was in London for quite some time, for almost 20 years, and I've moved back up north because I'm close to my family. And so I've had the opportunity to make jewelry as well, which is quite an unusual thing to do. So when I started to make jewelry, I found it really difficult to do. Because I was so used to making objects that are quite large, I didn't know what I was doing. And I know a lot of jewelry makers and they make beautiful, fine jewelry. So I felt like I was, an imposter. But with a lot of help, especially from a lady called Melanie Grant. She's a gorgeous curator and a writer. And with her help, she sort of like guided me, because to start off with, I was making things like beads and in metal and trying to pattern them. So I didn't really think about how these were going to be connected to anything, or how they're going to be worn. I wasn't whether it's going to go on your finger, or whether I was going to put something like on a big piece of cord. I didn't know not what I was doing. But eventually, after quite a few test pieces, I started to think of it more of something that would wrap around, or I'm not sure with this Zoom camera that you can actually see it very well, but so your hand would go into this piece here. So I quite enjoy forming metal, and so this to me made sense. I don't know if you can see that very well, how it'd wrap around your arm. I've actually got quite big arms, so I'm not able to get this on. This is for a normal person. Somebody with big hands like mine. Also tried neck pieces, but this is quite a large piece. So this could be worn on the neck. And also, I was thinking about the clasp also being like a piece of art as well within itself. The jewelry is still a work in progress, really. But I'm quite enjoying manipulating the metal and working out how it's going to fit in someone's hand. So yeah. So yeah, it's literally so that somebody can hold, use, and enjoy the material. Also here, while I'm here, I might as well show you pieces. So these pieces have been made quite a long time ago, but I don't know if you can see, but the surface of these remind me of skin in a way of like, it's really smooth, and it's been planished quite nicely so that you can see the hammer marks and stuff. And then I patinated it with I've oxidized it with lither of sulfur to get that sort of look, and then brushed it back. But yeah, no, I've enjoyed making metal, and in the future, I hope to continue to make. I enjoy making vessels more than anything else, only because they can be used for various things. I'm not very good at fabrication and putting materials together, but I do try every now and again. That's it, really. That's all I've got to say. Okay. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Ndidi. It was fabulous, and your work is beyond breathtaking. And to see the blend of functionality with aesthetics was really powerful, to say the least. Our next presentation is by Akebehi Kpolo, the creative director of Ohiri. Akebehi was born and raised in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, in a family where the preservation of African cultural heritage was very important. Therefore, at a very young age, Kpolo understood the need to preserve African cultural heritage traditions by making them known so that people will understand and grasp their value and importance. In 2006, after her high school graduation, Kpolo moved to France, or Paris specifically, to study economics and sustainable development at the Sorbonne. She obtained an MBA in economics and sustainable development in 2012 and started working as a consultant in corporate and social responsibility. Studying and working in France strengthened her sense of self and purpose. Um, the jewelry became a conduit for bigger discussions around self and all that she and we as humans collectively have. A way to start conversation, to share her vision and tell her story. Through Ohiri, Kpolo presents multicultural heritage and the diversity of ancient African savoir-faire. The project in 2012, during holidays in Cote d'Ivoire, Kpolo found local artisans. After working with them on updates into existing jewelry, the idea to do more germinated. While working in sustainable development in Paris, she set to work building Ohiri. Today, Kpolo permanently is based in Abidjan, her hometown, and works with artisans from Kenya and Cote d'Ivoire. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Akebehi Kpolo and I am Ohiri founder and creative director. Today I will try to share our journey with you. Ohiri is a creative studio that places ancient African jewelry art and craft in a contemporary landscape. Ohiri is a term used by the Beti people, an ethnic group from Cote d'Ivoire, a term that refers to an entity that matures gradually. So we matures gradually, I matures gradually. I was born and raised in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, by parents who were in love with the African culture and art. I remember my friend used to say that my parents' house looked like a museum because there were many different forms of art. My parents really wanted my sibling and I to be proud of our culture and heritage. So before sending us abroad, for example, they really want to make sure that we love and know our homeland first. So we traveled a lot around Cote d'Ivoire to discover its cultural diversity and beauty. I remember one trip, I was 11, I guess, and I discovered for the very first time the Akan people and the jewelry. The pieces was very bold and massive, and they were made in gold plated. I was in love. I was fascinated. A few years later, in 26, after my high school graduation, I moved to Paris for studying economics and sustainability. I obtained my MBA in 2012 and I started working as an environmental consultant. While studying in Paris, I saw a lot of misunderstanding. African people were not seen as I want them to be seen. Our story, our culture never. So I try to find a way to express myself. And I am a very shy person, so jewelry became a way to start a conversation, a way to tell my story. So my pieces allow me to present my multicultural heritage and the Africa I know. So this is how we start. And yes, Ohiri exists to be a bridge between African ancient art and craft and the contemporary landscape. I try to understand the aesthetic and the symbolism of the body ornamentation made by certain ancient African culture, and I reinterpret this code for today using jewelry as a platform. So we make conceptual jewelry pieces, objects, and also accessories that serve both as sartorial adornment and artistic statement. I start Ohiri by channeling the jewelry art of the Akan people, an ethnic group from Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. Gold occupies a central place in the Akan culture, alive in the state of nuggets and dead in the state of powder. gold is assimilated to a living being in perpetual motion. So gold is a way for them to communicate with the divine. It was therefore important for me to use this metal. So our pieces are mostly made in gold-plated brass or in vermeil. I wanted to present the Akanjari art in 3 different parts. The first through the making technique, the second through the material they use, so gold, and finally the symbolism behind the pieces. So that is what I did. Our 3 parts collection are part of a trilogy, and each piece is proudly handcrafted by artisans in Bassam, Abidjan, and Nairobi. In my imagination, I see jewelry as a human being. So when you wear jewelry, a discussion begins between your body and the jewelry. So I need my pieces to be bold and also playful to keep the conversation interesting. So we make jewelry an object at the intersection of art, design, and jewelry. They are statement pieces with an organic and an abstract design. Our pieces are wearable, and I design with the idea that they can be worn in different ways. So for me, pieces do not need to be functional or beautiful. It exists because you give it the importance you want it to have. So you start the conversation you want. When I create, it's more like writing a book. I share a story and I let people interact with it. Wearable pieces can be functional, and also functional pieces can be wearable. I'm on a new project, for example, and I made chairs and a table, and it's a little bit confusing for me because for the moment they are still decorative objects, and I try to make them functional. I do not want them to be left in the corner of a room, so I want these pieces to be integrated in people's life so that they can start a conversation. So I'm still working on it and find a way to do not only decorative pieces but also functional one. Our pieces are sold by different we sell them in different way. I do not want the pieces to be distributed everywhere, but I want them to be distributed in the right place. So the selection of the place where I wish to see our product sold is therefore elaborate with meticulousness. We are looking for partners who share our values and are we are in contact with them, and we want them to also be in contact with our customer and our target customer. So we sell our product and service to individuals and also businesses through the direct-to-consumer market and also the business-to-consumer market. Our jewelry, objects, and accessories are sold internationally, mainly in Africa, in North America, and Europe. In 2022, for example, our direct-to-consumer order came mainly from Côte d'Ivoire, France, UK, and the US. Our direct-to-consumer distribution channel are our online store, and I call them Oloyé private sale. So the private sale allow us to bring together handpicking customers and potential customers in a unique and more intimate and convivial space. So we also offer to consumer the possibility to order pieces that we made specially for them. So that is our D2C distribution. Our business to business, distribution channel are so concept store and boutique. We sell our product in Abi, a concept store in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. We also distribute in online platform like Industry Africa or the Folklore Connect. And our pieces are also showcased in art and jewelry gallery. There is one in Switzerland called Foreign Agent. So we approach our business to business partner each season by sending our lookbook, our landship through the email or during B2B showroom or fashion trade show. So with all our partners, we try to develop a unique relationship. How I see Oloyé in the future, first it was a way for me to express myself and tell my own story. And now it's more like being involved in the African jewelry industry growth. Our goal is to develop the African fashion and fine jewelry industry and the jewelry art industry in Africa made in the continent by local artists and artisans. So if today Oloyé offer body related jewelry, object and also accessories, I aim to develop a Jariet design and manufacturing studio in Côte d'Ivoire, specializing in the lost wax casting technique. I also want to relocate all the operation and production in Côte d'Ivoire and open a boutique gallery where our project, our research, our artistic collaboration, our visual production, all the stuff we made will be showcased. So more than a brand, I want Oloyé to be creative experience around the art of jewelry and a space where we can learn, share idea and create together. So this is how I see the evolution of the studio. And I try to explain the project and who we are. So thank you so much for having us and for listening to us. Bye.
Thank you so much, Akebehi. That was a fabulous presentation as well, and it was great to learn more about Oloyé. Our next presenter is Satta Matturi. Satta is the founder and creative lead of the award-winning brand Matturi Fine Jewelry, which she founded after a 17-year career working in sales and as a rough diamonds valuation at one of the largest diamond mining groups. Her skills, experiences, and network within the midstream of the diamond pipeline, coupled with her passion for diamonds and jewelry, led her to start up her own niche brand. Being British West African, Satta combines deep felt traditions and heritage from the African continent mixed with a global view of trends, attitudes, and inspiration to create distinct contemporary designs that resonate with all women across the globe. In addition to the brand, she manages a consultancy that offers niche services to the wider industry through rough diamond valuation and procurement, polished diamond sourcing, and business advisory. Satta is a regular contributor and speaker at conferences and webinars as a supporter of good sustainable mineral wealth distribution and promoting producer country benefaction. She is involved in various mentorship and charitable programs with the wider jewelry and design spaces and in diamond producing countries. Satta was appointed onto the executive board of the Responsible Jewelry Council in 2022 and has served as a panel judge on various initiatives, including the Goldsmiths Company Design Awards and Jewelry Hardship Funding Programs. She also acts as a mentor and advisory board member to various platforms that promote the design talent founded across the African continent. The Matturi brand and creations have been featured in numerous global publications such as Vogue, CNN, Vanity Fair, 1843, The Economist, New York Times, and the Financial Times. Thank you. Here's Satta.
Hi everyone, my name is Akebehi Kpolo and I am Oloyé founder and creator.
Hello everyone, my name is Satta Matturi and I am the founder and creative lead for Matturi Fine Jewelry, which is a jewelry brand that is based in the United Kingdom, in London, and we make fine jewelry using 18 karat gold, natural diamonds, and also precious and semi-precious colored stones. So how did I start off the brand? It started off in 2015, actually, after a career in natural diamonds in the mining industry of over 2 decades. And I kind of saw a gap in the market because I couldn't buy the sorts of pieces that I wanted to wear. And there was a lacking of jewelry design that sought inspiration from African elements, where a large majority of the raw materials came from. So that's how I started off initially, and here we are. Fast forward to today. So the Tasetti earrings are from our latest collection called Whispers of Moreau, which actually took inspiration from Egypt, but not the Egypt as we know it. So as a little girl, I've always been fascinated by Egypt. And my father would play the movie. I'm sure a lot of people know the movie Cleopatra, which starred Elizabeth Taylor. And we would watch that on repeat. And that was my first encounter with Egypt. And so I've always had this fascination. And also Art Deco is my favorite style of jewelry. So I've always wanted to do something that, sought inspiration from Egypt. However, we focused on the Kingdom of Kush, hence why the name Whispers of Moreau. So it was sort of taking back the history and the heritage of the Nubian dynasty and the pharaohs that once ruled Egypt. And I wanted to create something that actually told the stories of those dynasties. So the Tasetti is one of the iconic pieces. It's Tasetti in ancient Egyptian translates to the land of the bow and arrow, referring to the Kushite armies, who were known to be very skillful archers and very good at archery. So when you look at the piece, we've actually used 18 karat gold. You can see sort of the arrow coming through in spiky sort of depictions, and we've used black onyx together with textured gold and natural diamonds. So the Nomoli totem is one of our signature designs. And I think since we started it, when we started the brand in 2015, 2016, the brand has been known or has become known for bejeweled masks. So the design actually takes inspiration primarily from stone figurines found across West Africa, and also wooden masks and masquerades as well. So we're looking at sort of Central Africa, West Africa, so countries such as Sierra Leone, Liberia, Nigeria, and also central countries within the continent. So it's taking inspiration from these spiritual wooden mask heads, which have symbolic meanings across these regions. And what we do is we use bespoke cut stones and precious stones to create one-of-a-kind iterations of it. And they've done really well with us. So we have collectors who actually purchase them from us. They're primarily sort of pushed through or marketed through art galleries across the world. And I think one of the reasons that they've done so well is because, you know, we not only do we do them very well, so there's a lot of craftsmanship that actually goes into it, but it's the fact that we've taken something, a culture, a heritage, and interpreted it in our own way. And I think people appreciate that. And I think in today's world, people, you know, want to not necessarily sort of, you know, well, would like to share in that culture. And I think jewelry is a great way and a great sort of medium to be able to do that. Yes, so modular design is something that I introduced, and it wasn't in our first collection that we did, but it was introduced within the Whispers of Moreau, because again, you know, sort of when one actually looks at sort of sustainable sourcing and in today's world, you know, when you sort of look at just the economic landscape, I just thought to myself, what women really need is a piece of jewelry where, you know, they can wear it as a pendant, or they can sort of, you know, wear it as a pair of earrings as well. So that came into play. And that actually was part of the reasons why I introduced modular jewelry. But when you look at our pieces, you'll also notice that a lot of it is using sort of special bespoke cuts of stones. There we go. So when you look at our pieces, such as the Tessetti here, on one hand, you know, sort of the bespoke cutting of the onyxes, that you see the spiky bit at the bottom there. And this particular version, we've used rhodolites. On one hand, this allows for more creativity and differentiation to our designs, that it can be complicated with some materials. So you find that we tend not to use stones such as rubies and emeralds because they're quite soft. We can't be as playful and as flexible as we are with other types of precious and semi-precious stones. I think that comes through, and I think that's one thing when I set out to do when I started off the brand, we wanted to create distinct designs. So something that wasn't out there, something that was different, and something that actually sought inspiration from the continent, but in a very contemporary, fresh way. And I hope that comes across. I worked for De Beers for over 2 decades. And then obviously, I think I mentioned this earlier on, I left to start my own thing within the jewelry space. I still, to this day, run a boutique consultancy whereby I go out and I buy rough diamonds on behalf of companies and diamantaires. So diamonds, it's for me, it's kind of my stone of choice, if you can say that. And I very much, in fact, I very much like working in its rough form because that's what I'm exposed to many times. But it was great to actually collaborate with De Beers again on this project, which was part of their red carpet project. And what the brief was here's a bunch of diamonds. So it was 23 carats worth of diamonds that were all responsibly sourced, so sourced from the De Beers mines in Botswana, and it was actually cut and polished by Botswana people in Botswana. And they asked me to create a piece of jewelry, you know, sort of seeking inspiration yet again from the countries where the diamonds were sourced from. So I decided to reach out and sort of highlight the Kwe or San Bushmen people, who are, to me personally, are a fantastic example of doing and living sustainably. And they do this selflessly as hunter-gatherers living off the earth. And I drew inspiration from their sort of distinct rock art, which showcases the landscapes, the flora and fauna, and living within a sustainable ecosystem that has been passed on for generations. So that was actually the inspiration for these earrings. As I said before, 23 carats of diamonds were used, including 18 karat gold rather. But I think it was a great sort of partnership. The earrings were worn by Viola Davis on the red carpet. And I think it was just a great way to showcase a country that has, sort of natural resources and, mineral wealth, and has got so much going on, not just for the country, but for all sort of citizens and sort of people in general, civil society. I love the calabash, and it's one of, I mean, a lot of people say to me, which one's your favorite of all the jewelry that you've created? Which one's your, I think this would feature in that list. I love the calabash. Why? Because part of my life was spent growing up in Sierra Leone in West Africa before moving over to the UK when I was 15. And the calabash, as you rightly said, it's just everywhere. You see it it's a vessel that you see in every household. But for me, the reason why I wanted to share it with the world through jewelry is because it also carries huge spiritual and symbolic significance that is often associated with purity. And so it plays a key role during ceremonial events, in particular in West Africa, places like Nigeria, Niger, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, and sort of along that western coast of Africa, plays a key role in events such as marriages, births, and coronations of kings. But then again, it's a vessel that is used every day. So people use it as a drinking vessel for sort of washing rice and so on and so forth. So for me, it was just a great piece of an object that had such sort of huge symbolic significance. Why not create it in jewelry and take it out to the rest of the world? Whilst talking on that, we're bringing out a new iteration of the calabash, hopefully by the end of this year. So I'm excited to sort of reintroduce it again. I think materialism for me is very important in what I do and the designs that we create. It won't come as a surprise to everyone that my go-to stone is diamonds. I always strive to have diamonds in all the designs that we make, whether be it sort of your contemporary. I mean, we do lots of engagement rings, which are solitaire single stones for couples and friends and family and customers. But for the main work that we do, I try to bring in, and I try to bring in various materials, because I think it's due to the nature of the designs that we make. You have to bring in some element of color. You have to think outside the box, because here we are. The inspiration is Africa, and again, let me just touch on that. It's not just one region of Africa that I try to sort of bring out here, and Whispers Moreau is a good example of us sort of going up to sort of the northern part of the continent. But it's a huge, it's a huge continent, and a huge canvas for me to be able to pull inspiration from. So 54 plus countries. There is so much going on for us. So there is so much that I can take and bring back and, tell those stories in the form of jewelry. And I think, I've been so fortunate to have links back to the continent, to have lived there, to have experienced some of these stories that we're trying to tell. And as you know very well, I think, the creatives and the youth on the continent are emerging as a force of their own. You know, a lot more sort of Africans are understanding and celebrating their culture. So in many ways, it probably makes it a little bit easier for me, because it's out there. You know, social media and technology makes it easier to sort of take your stories out there. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see sort of this new wave, this renaissance that's coming through, because it also helps the work that we try to do, and you know, it helps us tell those stories, albeit in the form of diamonds and jewels. But that's what we do, and I'm just thankful that we just do it well. So first things first, it wasn't easy. It was lots of hard work. When I first started out the brand, there weren't a lot of people like me within that space. In fact, I think it's only after the Black and Brilliant exhibition that I found out that there were other. So I mean, it just shows the extent to where, you know, everyone just stays in their lane and put your head down and you focus on what you do. But it's nice to know now that there are others out there, which is so refreshing. But it was very hard to start off with. I always say this to people out there and also the listeners. I never went into design school. I came through this left field. I actually think that is a bonus for me, because I guess you look at things in a different way, and I don't necessarily have to follow the norm. I don't have to follow the book that says you got to do it in this step. I think outside the box. I try for excellence in what we do, in terms of whether it's sourcing the materials, in the craftsmanship of what we do, and I let that speak for itself. And I think that's what's taken us through, even before we made, if I can see, we went mainstream, and, you know, people became much more aware of the brand. So, I mean, if listeners out there, be authentic. I knew exactly what I wanted. I was seeking inspiration from the continent of Africa, where a lot of a large majority of the raw materials came from, but then pushing it and you know, making it in a contemporary way so that we can sell across the world and tell those stories in the form of jewelry. Hard work, but if you do it and you do it well, and you're very, you know, passionate about it, I think, you know, the rest is easy. People would have no choice but to stand and listen, and that's exactly what happened to us. And long may it continue.
Thank you so much, Satta. I really appreciate that. It was an amazing presentation as well, and I really appreciate your references to modularity and thinking through uniqueness of stones, which is really fascinating. Thank you all, our viewers, for taking the time to watch part 1 of our On Origins program. We're right now going to take a short break, and we'll reconvene at 3:05 Eastern Time. Thank you so much again. And again, when we reconvene here on the main stage, we'll be convening to see On Origins Part 2. That's the second part of this particular part of the symposium. And again, we'll be viewing or coming to see On Origins Part 2 around 3:05 Eastern Time. Thank you all so much. See y'all then. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Part 2 on Origins. Again, this program is exploring diaspora artists whose work focuses on themes and narratives that are rooted in or responding to West African cultural values and ideas. This Part 2 of On Origins is going to have 2 presentations, followed by a conversation moderated by the lovely Mazzi. Our first presenter for this round of presentations is by Jariet Oloyé. Jariet is based in London and is a jewelry artist and object artist. Her work is rooted in culture, heritage, and history. She has a passion to create pieces of work that bring joy and happiness through the use of recyclable materials and storytelling. Oloyé in Yoruba means wisdom bearer. Jariet was raised in a community of Yoruba artisans in Nigeria, where many were engaged in different crafts, using local source materials, natural materials, narrating spoken traditional stories being passed from one generation to the next. Jariet was encouraged to be creative and to be a creative. Growing up, she watched and participated in the arts of woven oso okay. Yoruba renowned colorful traditions, high cloths, and basketry. These skills led her to study jewelry and silversmithing at the School of Art, Architecture, and Design at London Metropolitan University. It was there she obtained an HND Design in Make Jewelry, Silversmithing, and Allied Crafts, and followed with a BA in Honors, an Honors BA, Silversmithing and Jewelry. All these special skills she learned equipped her artistic ability to develop abstract looped form wirework patterns that became her trademark. Oloyé, Oloyé's pieces are abstract images that tell stories of community and places. Her sculptural pieces of work are made individually by hand using traditional craft skills of weaving and metalsmithing, juxtaposed from each other. Special attention is given to the form, scale, and texture, examining the relationship between touch, memory, and craftsmanship. Oloyé uses earth-friendly recyclable materials and both traditional and modern techniques to create contemporary pieces of work. Here's Jariet's presentation.
Hello, my name is Jariet Oloyé. I am from Nigeria and I based in London. My work is influenced by African cultural values that nurtured in me from childhood. I am a lover of recyclable materials, most especially metal for its ductile malleability. I can draw out a piece of wire into any length and thickness and still control its flexibility. This helps me a lot in making process. I use wire as a medium of expression to showcase abstract faces of people in a group in any given community. I love to express their joy, happiness, and well-being with storytelling. Flying Saucer Cocktail is part of Galaxy Collection. It is inspired by our ancestors' spoken traditional stories that have been passed from one generation to the next of our African kings and elders, seeking spiritual guidance in decision-making while gathered under the baobab tree, the African tree of life.
Thank you so much, Jariet. I really appreciate seeing the method that you apply to your practice. Our next presenter is named Adaesi Ukairo. Adaesi is a metalsmith making sculptural forms in the copper and brass. Using hammers and forming stakes, she molds and shapes instinctively, engaging the metal's unique properties and malleability and strength to create distinct, highly textured and patinaed pieces. These pieces express the intangible from the fluid movability of energy. Her collections, Undule, Crush, Flat, and Miri, are abstract explorations expressing differing pathways from the predetermined form of flat to the free-flowing forms of Undele. All allow spaces for individual interpretation. Adaesi is of mixed heritage and spent a formative part of her childhood in the southeast of Nigeria, absorbing and learning the craft skills of the women in her village. Her heritage and range of experiences in her upbringing inform her designs and connection to the material she utilizes. The physicality of the hammering, the rhythm, the mark making, the sound of metal on wood, the feel and texture of the material, the color and the ensuing patination express her thoughts in the form of physical language. Her pieces emerge over time containing senses of balance in one single harmonious flow. She's trained as a silversmith and jeweler at London Metropolitan University. Here's Adaesi's presentation.
My name is Adaesi Ukairo. I'm of mixed heritage. My dad is Igbo from Nigeria. My mum is English from Britain. And I'd say my work is informed by my experience of those two worlds. Almost like two alien planets. The storytelling, the music, the singing, the textiles, the colours, the drumming. I lived in Nigeria between the ages of 7 and 12. Very formative years, and a world that was completely different from the London life that I'd led before. We experienced living in the village compound, first of all, which was mud huts, sandy paths, vivid green, reds of the earth. Used to make pieces with the women in the village, mats and rope and baskets, and maybe that's where I came to this wanting to use my hands and form pieces. It was different when we moved to the town, very different from village life. Again, very intense, colourful. Going to the market was very colourful, noisy. What an experience to have as a child. And it's definitely within my work. I couldn't say what particularly, but it's definitely there. Miri means water in Igbo, and that collection comes from my remembering walking down to the stream with my cousins and my friends and collecting water and carrying it back on our heads to the village. And it was always a really lovely experience, hard work, but the water would be clear and we'd play and dive underneath the clear water. I remember my dad telling me that when he was a little boy, there used to be hippopotamuses and monkeys in the bush in the Imo River, but long since gone. Long. And carrying water back on your heads is absolutely not done now where we are. My work is made up of synclastic and anticlastic forms. The synclastic forms I make using a sandbag or a tree trunk, and the anticlastic forms I've had to find ways of making stakes for myself and I found somebody who made some stakes for me. And that whole process is just a very interesting way of experimenting and finding ways to push the metal. I love coming into my studio and getting my metal out and starting off, sitting down, starting off with a shape that I've made on my flat sheet, and just taking my hammer and maybe making a few marks on the metal, getting an idea of it, getting a feel for it, and then I start hammering. And then I start developing the shapes, the form starts coming out, and I go into a kind of mesmerised. I feel quite mesmerised actually when I'm working, and then there are moments of that, and then I come out of it, and then I have a look at what I've done, and then I start again. And as I carry on, I carry on forming this piece, and there's no start or finish really. There's a kind of communication between me and the piece that I'm making, and the way that it makes sense as I'm hammering. It has to make a kind of sense of itself and have a balance within itself. And that's what I'm doing. I express in my work, in tangible form, the fluid movement and energy. I like to explore and have freedom in making, see what happens, not think too much or analyse too much. There is a sort of dichotomy in this, of freedom and being in control. The freedom is my intuitive sense, the feeling of flow when I'm making, not thinking. And the being in control, which in a way enables this freedom, is the knowledge and skills I've learned over years of how to use my tools and materials to make my work that enable this intuitive flow and freedom to create. I don't really want to be prescriptive about my work. I want people to look and create their own stories and interpretations. My pieces are more like conduits of movement and energy. I feel I'm at a point of having more stories to tell in my making, which brings me back to my childhood and the storytelling on moonlit nights, accompanied by games, dancing and drumming. The stories told were always open to interpretation by the people listening. To be honest, it's been really interesting making this piece. I've never really wanted to overanalyze what I do because I don't want to stifle the flow of what I'm doing. I have a collection of 4 works or families: Miri, Crush, Flat and Underlay. Flat is the most minimal in its execution of my collections and is an important member. Its movement is calm, rhythmical and meditative. Now I come to Underlay, the forms I've been seen making in this presentation. Underlay I make with no prior knowledge of the outcome. It's exciting, but also a little scary. But I like that dichotomy. I like the working out as I go along, ending with this free-flowing form. My granddad, Nana, had a shrine in the middle of the village compound, which we weren't allowed into, but we knew it was like a little house, but we knew that it housed his deities. And his daughter was always trying to get him to become a Christian, and she succeeded in the end, and he became a Christian and put away his beliefs of before. I'd like to say thank you all for listening to this story. All 4 of my collections are available to purchase. I also work to commission. You can contact me through my website, ukairo.com, and you can also find me on Instagram as Adaesi Ukairo. Thank you.
That was a powerful presentation, Adaesi. Thank you so much for sharing it. Those presentations were remarkable, thinking through technique and also seeing them actually documented is powerful, to say the least. Following this set of presentations is going to be a conversation and discussion moderated by Mazzi, which is going to happen in sessions, which is underneath on the left side of your browser. It's going to be underneath stage. It's called sessions. Madi is a writer, editor, and cultural consultant based in Lagos, Nigeria. Of Ugandan descent, her work has focused on fashion, design, art, and food, and the way that cultural identity is informed and evolves through the usage and meaning we place in the items we wear, use, or indeed consume every day. Her written work has been included in numerous of international publications, U.S. Vogue, Wallpaper, and Vanity Fair, to name a few. She's also written for exhibitions in Berlin and London, and she has also acted as a speaker and moderator global design-focused events, including NYC Jewelry Week and Gold West Africa. In 2016, she founded Magnus Oculus, a blog focused on providing in-depth, long-form analysis of the most significant creative talents within the jewelry and fashion landscapes, with a special emphasis on those from the global south and its diaspora communities. Educated in the UK, she is the holder of the BA in History from the University of Bristol and a Master's of Science, International Relations from the London School of Economics and Political Science. She is currently working on a book on contemporary African jewelry. Again, you can join Mazzi for a moderated conversation in sessions underneath stage in the left side of your browser. I'll see you all soon as we reconvene after Mazzi's conversation. We'll have a break, and then we'll reconvene for Transforming Traditions here on the main stage. See you all soon. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Mazzi.
Hi. Okay, I think we'd better start. So I had a question here for Satta. Is Satta still there? And it was a question from Sherry Cordova, and she asked that we saw on the inspiration board for the earrings worn by Viola Davis that you want to bring back the idea of a team of Matturi makers, or do you bring back object sketches and photos? So I don't know if Satta's still here, she can jump in and answer that. But I think what would be great to ask those of you who are here, so that's Adaesi, Akebehi, I think I saw somebody else, but I'll see the 2 of you here. You both spoke about the importance of your culture informing and you being able to make sense of the 2 worlds you resided in. And so I just wanted you to expand a little bit about that based on your series, and also utilizing methodologies that both have origins in your countries of origin, in this case, Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria, and also that also have resonance in your other locations that you've lived in? I know, Akebehi, you've since returned to Côte d'Ivoire, but you were in France, and Adaesi, I know you're in the UK.
Okay, well, I would say that I'm not sure what the question is particularly, but on my origins, I would say how it influences my work, I suppose, is what you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's sort of more, it's something that you said when you talked about memory and the collision of two alien worlds. So both from your family identity and something very interestingly that Akebehi also pointed out was this idea of a work in progress, her bringing this project to maturity. Oh, great, Satta, you're back. There's a question for you in the chat.
Okay.
Amazing. So that was just more what I was just interested in seeing if you could expand upon that a little bit more.
Is that to me? Hello? Are you still Mazzi?
No. That's to Adaesi and Akebehi, because you just jumped on.
Yes, exactly. We have
your question. I'll ask you after.
Can you hear me now?
That. Yes, we can.
Excellent. Good.
So I would say that my mixed heritage is something that I can't put on, I can't specifically say what it is about it that's brought my way of making or my way of thinking. It just is there within me. And I think having lived somewhere like Nigeria during my childhood, only for 5 years, but it was really affecting, and it's just in my being, along with living where I live now. And I suppose I haven't really explored that in itself until I came to be doing this piece for SNAG, and it made me have to think about and sort of talk about where my pieces come from, because I don't design, I don't kind of draw them out first. I like drawing, but I don't design my pieces before I make them. They just come from inside me, and just all the things that I said about the textures, the hammering, the material, the look of everything, the feel. It's all in my being, and it has to come out. So that's how it comes out. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, Mazzi.
No, you are. You are, because you're speaking to the metaphysical, and it's also something that Akebehi also touched upon.
It's difficult to put in words. That's why I make. So because I'm not a wordsmith, I make pieces because I'm trying to. I also think that I'm describing something that other people connect to. So people see my work and it says something to them, which might not be what I'm saying myself, but people will get out of it their own stories, kind of thing.
No, I think it's very much, I think that's something that it's very evident that you are articulating through the forms. And it's equally something, again, that one saw in the Oloyé pieces. Akebehi, did you want to speak to that? Or I can ask Satta's question that's in the group chat for Satta, which was from Sherry Cordova, Satta, and she was asking, I have a question. We saw the inspiration board for the earrings worn by Viola Davis. Is that how you bring back ideas for the team of Matturi makers? Or do you also bring back objects and sketches and photos? So I suppose that's a question speaking to your design process, and, you know, in the same way with Whispers of Moreau, where you decided to go very deep into the Kush dynasty.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good question. So let me answer the first bit of it. So for the inspiration for the Quay earrings, so the earrings that Viola Davis wore were actually called the Quay earrings. That was a collaborative design project with myself or the brand, and also with a mining company, so a diamond mining company. And so, to be honest, for that project, I received a brief, and it was showcasing natural diamonds in a space where, you know, currently they're under threat by synthetics. But also it was a project that wanted to sort of drive the case for provenance, the case for natural diamonds, what basically Botswana, which is the home for natural diamonds, you know, a country being one of the biggest or largest producers of natural diamonds. So that was a brief. So I had to follow that. They did say to me, you know, it's an open book, but it needs to sort of, you know, come back to the roots. And I wanted, as I showcased, I think quite extensively in my talk, I wanted to showcase the San Kwe people. So that's where that sort of inspiration came from. But for other pieces of work that we've done before, Mazzi, you know, sort of made reference to Whispers of Moreau, and also Artful Indulgence, which was my debut collection. It's things that actually come to my mind. As you know, the brand, you know, always seeks inspiration back from the continent. So Whispers of Moreau, again, it was my love for Art Deco, my love for, you know, sort of the Egyptian style of, you know, sort of that era. And I wanted to do something different, but with an African twist. And so I do lots of research. I spent quite a lot of time in the museums, both in the UK and also in New York as well. And I, you know, consulted with a lot of people studying Egyptology, but also, you know, it's lots of research that I do. So lots of literature and reading and sort of, yeah, putting a mood board together, which I then bring to the team. And most times, yeah, we sort of sketch over like 50 to 100 designs, and then we have to whittle it down depending on sort of the direction that we take, whether we're going to go for a certain type of stones, you know, whether we're going to, you know, work with certain metals. So that's how we do. So I use a myriad of things, but mainly it's steeped in sort of that research.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and the research is really evident. I thought also what's really pertinent, specifically with Whispers of Moreau, was you reclaiming Egypt back into the conversation around Africa, because a lot of people, even in their mindset or in their perceptions, they literally think Africa belongs just to sub-Saharan Africa, but, you know, the people of Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, as much part of the continent. And also, again, speaking to the dynasty you're referencing, the Nubians, which again, a lot of people aren't aware, were part of the ancient Egyptian line of regnants. And, you know, it's so interesting because both you and Akebehi talk about research, because Akebehi is also very much a research-driven practitioner who is always trying to posit the continent of Africa. So Akebehi, can you, I mean, sort of speak a little bit to your own practice, how you draw upon research as well?
Thank you. The speech of Satta resonates to me because it's kind of the same process for me. The fact that I want to learn first to be sure that I do my research. I go to museum, to exhibition, but also, if I can, I go to the country to see the village where the pieces are come from, and start discussion with people there. Try to find old pieces and the way they were done, the story behind all the pieces. I can be inspired by my own life, and it's a mixed match of the research, my personal experience, the thing around me, and it's more like doing the research to understand the meaning and the symbolism behind those pieces, and integrate them to my own vision of it, and it's a mixed match of like everything. And yeah, I made mood board from old pieces, new one, everything I come to my mind. So I used to work with one of my assistants, and to say that there is so many idea, and we need to yeah, to rearrange them and create the collection. So we now we are inspired by the Akan people, but I don't know, in five year or maybe 1 year it will be the Fulani people. It's just like there is so many cultures, so many interesting old story, and you can bring into to the contemporary landscape and recreate them. And I think what is beautiful is that when you see all these ethnic groups, they are still influenced by the contemporary world, and they are still changing their own way of making things. For example, the Akan people, they used to use gold, and now they integrate some silver and gold plated new design. It's not only the Adingra, they insert new design on it. So they it's still a process of growing. So I learned from it, and I'm inspired by I think Africa is the main inspiration, and yeah, there is many things to do, and I think it's important for me to do that, because um, it's my way to contribute to the way people see our story, and it's my way to tell my own story, to reappropriate my own story and tell it. So yeah, this is how I try to. This is why I try to learn first, and after that, doing my research and being sure about what I'm talking about, and after that, tell the story.
Mazzi, can I just add something there?
Of course.
Just very quickly, just for the benefit of the listeners, and in particular, sort of people who are looking to come into jewelry as well. So using Whispers of Moreau as an example, our latest collection, I must say, I have never been to Egypt. It's one of the places I would love to go to. My plan was to visit Egypt or Sudan, but obviously COVID hit, so I couldn't go through. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are so many resources out there that, I mean, I'm the kind of individual where if I love something and I want to tell a story, I just immerse myself in it. So I just want to send out a message out there. It doesn't necessarily, because people say you got to go. No, there's so much research that you can do. And if you're passionate about something, I think, you can still sort of do a solid job. Sorry, just wanted to say that.
No, it's good that you said that. And this is the whole point of this. It's an interactive conversation. And we have a question for all of you, actually. So that's for you, Satta, Adaesi, and Akebehi. And this is from Carrie Ann. And she wants to know why, in instances you have, in your respective practices, have chosen either jewelry or metal craft for the exploration of your ideas. I think she's sort of being more expansive. Why did you not pick another creative outlet to express these ideas?
Okay, shall I go first?
By all means, please do. Yes, you can.
I chose, I suppose in the way of metalsmithing, because I did a jewelry and silversmithing course, so I learnt jewelry. But when we went into the workshop and started working on large pieces of metal, the first time we did that, I just thought, this is for me. It was just like the scale that you could work on, and this wonderful malleable material on that scale. Yeah, and I just thought, yeah, jewelry is just too small for me. So it's just the expanse of it. I could expand, my ideas could expand into this material. That's why I use big sheets of metal.
That's very sort of a very sort of valid and clear answer. Satta, Akebehi, do you have any thoughts of your own, your perspectives, and why you chose jewelry?
It's difficult for me to answer that. I think for me, jewelry is I can wear like just a black dress and statement pieces, and it's a way to, it's a different way to communicate, and it's easier for me to express myself through jewelry. And I think my mom, my auntie, and in Cote d'Ivoire we have this kind of statement pieces, and yeah, I was surrounded by that, and it came naturally for me to express myself through jewelry. And one thing is that sometimes people pick the clothes, and after that they choose the jewelry. And I want the contrary to be natural. So you put the huge pieces, and after that you choose the like the minimal clothes you want. So, yeah.
Sorry, Mazzi, can I go very quickly? I think, yeah, Akebehi has summed it up really well. For me, it was a love for jewelry, really. I had a mother who wore a lot of jewelry, and I was fortunate enough to be, to work within an industry where, I was kind of surrounded by it. And I couldn't find anything that actually spoke to me when I bought jewelry. And that's how I started. I started, having stuff made for myself. And then it sort of, filtered through to sort of friends and family and all of that. But there was nothing that spoke to me. There was nothing out there that sought inspiration from Africa. And just to what Akebehi just said, I mean, I moved to the UK when I was 15, but most of my sort of, younger formative years was spent in Sierra Leone. And I think one thing that people tend to forget is that, in Africa, jewelry is part of our lives. And, in all the various regions, north, south, east, west, central, it runs through. It's within the culture. You see it, sort of birth of a child, weddings, women adorn themselves with jewelry. So I think, yeah, that sort of follows through, and yeah, that was my reason to sort of choose this path.
No, I think it's very, very, I think what you've said there, Satta, and also earlier what you said, Akebehi, of it being a conduit for you to explore notions of selfhood and also things that have influenced and have informed you is really, really pertinent. And also what all of you have discussed, which is the power of lived experiences in one's formative years, popping up, years, decades later, even in one's day-to-day, is something really, really important for anyone, both listening and practitioners who listen afterwards, to really think deeply about. We have a question from Itunu. So she said, a question for Adaesi concerning the sounds made during your work process. I think you mentioned how this is connected to sounds from local talking drums. Essentially, what I want to ask is, would you be open to collaborate with soundscaped artists, or maybe just explore sound archiving through your works? So I don't know whether that's an invitation for collaboration, but it's interesting if you could respond to Itunu's comments regarding the sounds.
Yeah, I'm always open to any to exploring, experimenting in any kind of way. I'm not sure what you mean in terms of when I said the drumming, I wasn't necessarily saying, I mean, that is what I'm doing with my hammer, but I'm not necessarily, yeah. I'm not saying that was the drumming that I heard when I was a child.
Yeah, I think she said she wasn't too sure, so maybe she came in partially through.
Yeah.
And speaking to your point,
was part of the whole experience that made everything so different, and so yeah, it's just there in me, kind of thing. But yeah, the drumming. I love the sound of my drumming. It takes me into a different way of being. Yeah, it's great.
No, it's something also Ndidi's film also talked about, the meditative flow process, and also the keynote from MFA saying when you're solitary and at your bench, you sort of get into a sort of meditative space. Lisa Stovis, just responding to you, Satta, says she loves the idea that jewelry is a part of your lives and not just a non-essential purchase, and she thinks that's awesome. So I just thought it's always good to hear when something one has said has had such a resonance with our listeners, which is fantastic. I want to ask a question to all of you. Obviously, you've chosen to participate in not just a symposium called Tides and Waves, but one that's, speaks to on origins. When you think about how your body of work might be viewed in 150 years, when all of us here on this chat are long gone, what do you feel is so important about your origins in speaking to your body of work? Or what do you, obviously one doesn't have a crystal ball, but what fragments of you do you think will remain in your bodies of work? And any of you can answer that.
That's quite a question, Mazzi. I don't really think about the future in that way, thinking 100 years ahead. I kind of think if somebody came across my my copper or brass, they may need some copper or brass to make something else. They could melt it down and use it to make something else. I don't really see, I kind of speak it now, but I don't kind of think about what's going to happen to it in the future.
It's a difficult question. I agree, Mazzi. But so we make, and I'm speaking right, sort of particularly to our anomaly totems. So we make pieces where collectors buy, and I just hope you could consider them as heirloom pieces, and I just hope that they're passed on from generation to generation. That's how I'll answer this. Yeah, I just hope it lives on.
I think it definitely will live on. I'm sorry for asking the tricky question, but I certainly see, and maybe because I'm a historian by training, I see that it's a really exciting point where coming to where we are in 20 years into the 21st century, and roughly give or take 60 to 65 years since decolonization of Africa. And I think that you sort of already starting to see different identity and creative and aesthetic stories happening as a result of movement and migration. So obviously when you're in it, creating it, I guess you're just thinking, look, I'm just creating things that make sense to me now as an artist, whether it's jewelry or vessels in Adaesi's case. So it's just really more a question of thinking about what I think this program is very important for, which is documenting and chronicling places and spaces and artists who maybe, for whatever reason, as Satta rightly pointed out, information is there and one can research, but having the opportunity to have the right of reply live and to hear from the artists in real life is very exciting for everyone who's gathered tonight or this afternoon in case of those in America.
I guess, Mazzi, one thing also to add is, I mean, that it just came to mind. Let's not forget that, you know, in many parts of Africa today, you know, languages are dying, culture's dying. You know, maybe because of technology, you know, kids want to, you know, sort of concentrate and you know, on other things. So hopefully with our pieces of work being out there, I'm hoping that it will just inspire that generation and you know, they would want to sort of keep it going on.
I just want to add something on that. I think it's important what you say, Satta, because I hope that in the future our pieces will contribute to the transmission and sharing the heritage, and yeah, being passed to generation to generation, but also a way to share our cultural diversity and our story in another medium, and help them contribute to those different beautiful culture to be seen. So yeah.
I love what both of you are saying in relation to future generations. And, you know, speaking as I am here from Lagos, we do have a real challenge. I think someone's mic is on because we're getting a lot of static. But we do have a real challenge in terms of Cyril, do you want to say something? Let me mute.
I muted, so you might have to unmute. I think it was the static.
We can't hear you. There's a lot of static.
Okay. Maybe you can write your question in the chat.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the contribution.
We're hearing a lot of static. It's hard to hear you over the static.
Why don't you drop it and then call back in again? Do you want to? There we go. Wow. Okay.
Can you take them out? Can you take that one?
I think it's when you put your ear.
Can you hear us now? You hear us? No.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Much.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So,
no headphones.
That's good. Yeah. So just want to add to the contribution. Yeah. About a question you asked. This was something that I asked my students a few years ago. That supposing 50, 100 years from now, that we are not here, what will be left of us? Like what we do our practice? Will somebody even ever know that this type of practices existed? So I organized some of my students, and then we had a chasing and repose class where we decided to capture some of the African lifestyle on chasing and repose, a plaque that is quite big. So I grew up in a community where we have clusters of families doing everything just around. You see, you look across, you see somebody pounding fufu, and then you look across, another driving banku in a big bowl. So, and almost all the buildings are together. You just walk across and then you get to another family. So that is our way of living. And I thought in some years to come, it looks as if every now and then buildings are being pulled down and then replaced with beautiful skyscrapers and so we thought of trying to capture such ideas on chasing and reposing. So that is how we also try to remember some of our lifestyle. So we capture it in either copper or brass in a repose form. And then at least the idea is that in some years to come, when maybe paperworks and some of the printed materials may not be there, at least these materials should be able to speak to the way of life in some years past. So that is how we try to capture some of the memories. Yeah. Thank you.
Cyril, thank you so much for that contribution. I'm so glad we got the sound, because I think what you said is really, really powerful. This idea of, the physicality that metal allows, and a bit like when people now go on archaeological digs and find things from the Roman and Greek age and can piece together something of the lifestyles of those people 2,000-3,000 years ago. And the project that you and your students did of capturing contemporary Ghana in Repousse sounds, tremendous, really, really exciting, and definitely speaks to, some of the themes that we've explored in this session. I think that was really quite powerful. I'm very, very bad at timekeeping. I don't know if we have time for another question. Brienne, if you can indicate in the chat.
I think we have 10 more minutes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so,
that's good to know.
Yeah, 10 more
that's good to know.
minutes.
That's good to know. So if you're feeling shy, but you're getting involved, feel free to jump in on the chat. But I wanted to ask a question, and this is, again, a generalistic one. All of you could add something to it. I want to ask you, in your practice and with your clients, how has it been in terms of how your work has been received? Have you been surprised sometimes about the people who have connected with your work? There's often this, I think it's a bit of a assumption that, one will get one sort of collector, or certain people are drawn to certain work from certain parts of the world. So I just want to hear directly from those who are making. Have you ever been surprised? What have you noticed? If there's been any sort of pattern or trend in those who collect or choose to collect your work or purchase your work for family and friends and loved ones?
If I can start.
Please do.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how people interact with the pieces. When I create, I have my mom in front of me, and I gradually she is like the muse of the brand. Oloyé is actually a name, and so the pieces are genderless. I don't want. I want people to feel free to wear anything. Like if you want to wear a necklace, if you want to wear a nail ring, feel free to do it. So it's amazing to see how, in fact, the artists and the local artisans with who I'm working with interact with the pieces. It's thinking out of the box for them. It's not like traditional pieces, so it's always interesting to see how they welcome new project, and it's a teamwork, and I love the fact that from an idea we finally find a way to come to the final pieces, and it's not always the person I think that really were the pieces that buy it. So it's a little bit interesting to see how they react to it. And each, for example, the last collection is supposed to be a tribute to Crocodile King. So the shape are abstract shape of crocodile, and I love to see how people see it. Some of them see snakes or just a poem, and yeah, like I said, I like to start discussion with people and let them interact with my work. So it's always interesting to see how we can talk about different things, maybe the heritage, maybe the shape, maybe the fact that they are intemporal and yeah, so on. So I don't know if I really answered the question, but yeah.
No, you definitely have, because like you said, the surprise and allowing for space of how people interpret and engage. Satta, did you have anything to add? It'd be really interesting to hear.
Yeah. So you could say the pieces that we create are, they're quite distinctive. They're different. So our sort of main clientele, or the people who buy our pieces, are self-purchasing women. So oftentimes these are women who they have it all. So they've owned pieces from the big maisons, and they're looking for something different. But one thing that always keeps coming back is that they appreciate, it's not just the craftsmanship, but they appreciate the story behind the piece. So all of our pieces are named, and there's a story behind it. So and just to throw this in there, when I started, or I had the idea of doing bejeweled masks and masquerades, I remember the atelier that I first started working with said, no one's going to buy this. And I was like, okay, all right, let's see. But Mazzi, as you know, we've come a long way. And now we're starting, we're in the UAE. We've got sort of collectors in Europe, and also we've just sort of started 18 months ago in the US market, and we're starting to see repeat buyers as well. So it's good, but it takes time. It takes time, but I don't know whether I've answered the question, but yeah.
No, you definitely have, and obviously, I can say this because you're far too modest to share with everybody, and it speaks to the atelier that thought no one would want to, wear something that references masquerade troupes. Well, they obviously haven't seen what's on Rihanna's feed, because she is obviously one of your clients and who has an early iteration of the Nomoli totems. And I think it's again that notion of if something is unfamiliar, like you said, the storytelling being something that draws people in. If something's initially unfamiliar, but if it's told compellingly, those who are not even necessarily from where the story originates will want to participate too. And I just wanted to also ask Adaesi, relating to your objects and the big, large pieces, have you noticed when you've taken them to different galleries, different spaces, a different sort of engagement with those vessels that you would like to share with us?
Well, I'd say that I make this piece that I've been making for the last couple of years. So I'm just now taking them out there. So, and I'd say the people that do buy my work are, you can't really say they're specific types of people, but they are individuals. People tend to buy, they come and see, they tend to buy for themselves because they're not sure someone else will like my work because it's quite particular. You may really love it, but people are kind of like, ooh, what is that? But so I'm taking my work out there and showing it out there now, and I'm getting a good response from it, and I'm getting commissioned work. But I feel like I'm kind of just at my great age. I'm just beginning to do this in this way. I used to make more functional pieces like mirrors and stuff like that, and covering bars in copper and brass, that kind of thing, always kind of large scale. But I'm doing more sculptural work now, which is my passion really. And I'm kind of giving myself a chance to get it out there and see what people think of it. And I'm having a good response to it. And I've had commission work, but like I say, it's more like people seeing my work and going, oh yeah, I like that. Could you make me something like this? for me. And so I talk to them about who they are and what their story is, and then it kind of comes out.
I think that's really, really powerful. And I just want to ask very briefly, because I know we're almost running out of time, but I think it's a really important one, as you know, those of you who are in the making business, about nomenclature. Do you see yourselves as artists? Do you see yourselves as makers? Do you even think nomenclature matters in terms of how you're received in the canon? Are you even bothered about how you're received? It's just be really interesting, because sometimes when people speak of intrinsic value or appreciative value for items that people have made, nomenclature seems to hold a big deal of it. And also we have two of you who, well, Adaesi, you're formally trained and trained in metalcraft. Satta, you're trained in the other side of the jewelry ecosystem as a rough diamond expert, but you already said you're an autodidact in terms of creating jewelry. And then Akebehi, you have an interesting interdisciplinary where you initially didn't and then have subsequently gone on to receive training from artisans as well. I just want to just get an idea of where you see yourselves with nomenclature and its value.
I think I call myself an artist. I used to call myself, well, I'm all these things. I'm a metalsmith, I'm a maker. It's very important to me that I use my hands to make my pieces. And I suppose more recently I've called myself an artist, because I think that's what art is. You're taking something that you can't really express in words, but you're making it. So you make and you're expressing that, and people understand that. People do understand these three-dimensional work as well.
Can I just add to that, Mazzi? I think I'd like to. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see myself as a storyteller, and I always, and it's a great question, because you know, when people say, you know, how do we address you for conferences or, you know, sort of exhibitions, I always say that I am a creative lead. And that's, you know, I'm out there, I'm passionate about what I do, and I tell stories.
I think I will join you on that. I see myself as a creative, like I create. I use jewelry as a platform, but I can try to explore over medium, painting, accessorize. We are doing the book. Yeah, I just want to tell story to, so if jewelry is the platform for sharing this story, so that I will go with the jewelry. And if it's another medium, I will go with that. So I just create. So I don't like the label, but if I need to pick one, I will go with creative.
I kind of really love the way that all of you are choosing not to be defined. I think what we've seen in this conversation is a multiplicity of approaches to metal, because I think that's how we can describe it best. And I think it's really important that the artists, first of all, are allowed to define themselves as they wish to define, but more importantly, by you being so expansive in your work, it creates many, many portals for people to engage and for people to connect, if they're fortunate enough to also collect and own and interact with your pieces in real life. I'm just going to have a quick check in the Q&A, but it's been an amazing conversation, and thank you everybody who's joined us. I could talk to all of you for hours. I've spoken to all of you at some point or another about your work, and so it's just a real privilege to get to talk to you again at Tides and Waves. So thank you so much. Does anyone have a question before we're all ushered out into our next break. I'll just have a quick check in the chat.
You can take a break, so you don't have to rush out. And I just want to thank you all for being a part of it.
Oh yes, we have someone who's actually said something. Elaine, I think it's really important to acknowledge this for our participants. It is absolutely powerful to see women at the forefront of this discussion and work that is unique and again powerful. So I think that's really, really quite beautiful to hear and to know that your work has connected with people so powerfully this evening.
Thank you so much for having us and for allowing us to share our story.
Indeed, yeah, it's been really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Fantastic.
Thank you
Really pleased
all.
to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being part of the discussion on Origins Part 2. I really thank you so much, Mazzi, and thank you so much to all the artists who participated in this conversation and discussion. It was really fruitful, and it really helped, I think, expand a lot of people's conceptions of what making is in West Africa, as well as who's occupying the role of maker a lot of the time, which is powerful. Right now, we're going to take a quick